Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys in their DC Multiverse line, we are featuring Batman Knightfall Nightwing. Alright, so this Nightwing kind of really speaks to me. Knightfall was like early 90s, and that's kind of like my generation of like DC superheroes, or at least kind of like the now, I don't want to say the peak, but I was kind of into comic books at a very young age. But around in Nightfall, I think took place like when I was maybe like a freshman or sophomore in high school, and that's like one of those periods of time when I was like super deep into comic books. I mean, I'm still deep into comic books but back then it was like almost like at a different level. And Nightwing was always my favorite character from the Batman family. I do like, as much as I like Batman, I think Batman's a jerk, and I've always kind of felt like Nightwing is the guy I kind of jive with. It's a character that I think is more likable. And even though I love this action figure, it's, I think, like maybe one costume away from the one action figure or one Nightwing costume I really want, and that's Disco Nightwing. I really want that Nightwing from that like George Perez era of Teen Titans, when he had like the really giant collar and the open chest, and it just looked outrageous. This one's nice though, don't get me wrong, and I was excited for it when I first saw the promotional photos. So let's get started. So we have Nightwing here. It's a very clean looking figure. The one thing that kind of throws me off with it though is that the costume, it's unique in the sense that the design is printed on his uniform as opposed to it being like a sculpted like relief, if that makes any sense. Like, I kind of feel like if this figure was made without a sense of budget, maybe instead of having the emblem printed on his uniform, maybe look more modern, and it'd be something that would be sculpted on his chest as opposed to it being just drawn on, if that makes any sense. The figure features multiple hands, which is nice. It's really cool that McFarlane is giving us more hand options and even like portrait options in some of their figures. One hand here has Nightwing holding his throwing disc, which eventually evolves, or no, it's evolved from the Birdarang. Like Batman has his Batarang, Robin has his Birdarang, and of course Nightwing, when he graduates to this style of character, he kind of moves onward, and instead of using the Batarangs, he uses the throwing disc. Oh man, I just remembered something. Okay, so I can't remember if Nightwing has the mullet. Because as I'm looking at this artwork here, I don't think this is from that era. I think this clearly depicts Nightwing, but I think this is a much more modern illustration. I don't think this was taken from that time period. And I can't remember if Nightwing back during Knightfall had the mullet, because there was a long period of time when Dick Grayson did sport the mullet haircut. The nice thing with like the McFarlane figures is that chances are, down the road you might get a head that might, fit the figure or fit the costume design you want. So, you can easily swap the head with another one. Like there's been so many, like, for example, Red Hood figures that have been done. And, if you wanted to, you could try swapping out the different head options to create, a figure that's a little bit more perfect for you. Likewise, I'm kind of hoping that in time they'll give us a Nightwing head with the mullet. And then, then I can, like, kit bash my perfect mullet style Nightwing character. So we get the trading card, the display stand, and then we have the figure here, which isn't looking too shabby. It's such a plain looking figure. It almost kind of like feels like an older Mattel DC Classics. And when I say like it looks so plain, is that the figure is it's really missing like all the bells and whistles of a standard McFarlane figure. Like McFarlane figures, they're known for being like hyper detailed with like all sorts of textures and layers to like create a different sense of material. But for here, it's just very plain. It's very spandex-like, and As I've pointed out, it's very unusual just to get a print of the design on the figure as opposed to it being a sculpted detail. All right, so we have Nightwing here. Great looking figure. He feels, I want to say he feels kind of small compared to some of the other DC Multiverse figures produced by McFarlane. And it's a really unique figure in the sense, like I said, it's unique in the sense that, you know, his uniform is just very clean and smooth, which is, you know, very indicative and reflective of the comic book design. You know, when you think of comic book designs, it's very spandex-like, which makes sense here. It's just kind of missing, you know, that kind of texturing that McFarlane figures always seem to give us. You know, for example, like, you know, here's this Batman. You know, you have the textured ribbed lines on the inner thigh. You have all the seam lines, the folds, and the wrinkles on the costume to give it the appearance that he's actually wearing something over his body. You know, you have all this nice texturing on the boots. So that's the thing that kind of throws me off with this figure. It's just very, very clean. It's a very comic book inspired look. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, it'd be great if they just gave us a line of action figures that was almost kind of very bare bones like this, and is strictly this like comic book, like hardcore like comic book design. You know, where all the details are not sculpted on, maybe they're printed on like this. You know, I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to do. I like the head a lot. Oh, okay, so even though he doesn't have the mullet, he does at least have the ponytail, which he did sport back then also. So it's kind of nice. Very clean sculpt on the hair also. The printing on this is very clean, all nice sharp edges. The shade of blue is kind of deep, it's kind of rich. I like that a lot. It still sports the baby blue gloves and boots, much like the costume design. The belt feels a little bit too modern. I might be wrong on that though, but it's still a nicely done piece. I love all the pouches and the Nightwing symbol in the center. As I pointed out, this hand is holding the throwing disc, which we see right there. Even though this is an older figure, this gives you an idea of the height and the scale. Next to the older McFarlane designed Batman. Let's get this into focus. Like I said, he does feel a bit smaller. You know, he's still larger though than a Marvel Legends figure. And then here's my Sean Pertwee Alfred. I like this figure a lot. This is like one of my favorite DC figures. It's from the Gotham TV show. Articulation, his head moves. Does he look down? About there. Does it look up? Yeah, pretty decent. Arms rotate. He does have that ball jointed or ball socketed butterfly joint, so it allows for extended range of motion. The design's kind of broken up here because the original costume design, it kind of like flows from the chest over the shoulder here, but you know, due to the nature of the design, it gets kind of broken up, which is kind of a misfortune, but I think it's all right. I kind of do wish it would carry over, so it look a little bit more accurate. You know, these two gold pieces are supposed to be connected, but I can't really see a way they could have done that cleanly. Double pinned elbows, articulated wrists. Even though the joint's exposed, I think it's sculpted to conform to the shape of the hand, to the wrist, to the forearm. So it's a little bit cleaner than some of the other figures we've gotten in the past. He has a cut mid-torso, so nice diaphragm movement there. Swivel at the waist, his legs kick up, they kick outward, and double pinned knees, and articulated ankles and toes. So it's a great figure. If you're kind of like within my age group or a little bit older, this might be your go-to Nightwing figure. You know, I did like the new 52 design. Was there a 3 Jokers Nightwing? There's been so many Nightwing figures, and I've kind of liked them all. But I think it's kind of refreshing to get, you know, a Nightwing figure that's kind of a throwback to a bygone era, you know, in Batman's history. It's a cool look. I dig it a lot. You know, it's very different from what younger fans are used to, but, you know, for me, this is kind of like the Nightwing I grew up on. And like I said, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get that George Perez Teen Titans Nightwing sooner than later. You know, I love Disco Nightwing. All right, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.